Hello and welcome to my woolly PhD. My name's Liz Scarf and this is a weekly vlog about what I'm currently learning and making in my anthropology PhD, all about wool. You can find a bit of an overview of the project in the introductory video on the channel if you are new here. But yeah, this week. So my video is late this week, partly because I forgot, but I forgot because I've been working so hard. I spent 10 hours on Sunday and on Saturday working on my confirmation of candidature, which is like due in a month. Well, 3 weeks or something. Anyway, pedal to the metal at the moment. But this week, what I thought I would chat about is the Lopapeysa. Now, if you haven't heard of this, the Lopapeysa is what's called this traditional Icelandic sweater. And Lopa, I think, means, or Lopi means wool, and the Peysa is like sweater, it's like it's literally wool sweater. So there's 3 resources I would name today in my learnings about the Lopapeysa. So there's an honours thesis by Kathleen Donlan called The Lopapeysa, a vehicle to explore the performance of Icelandic national identity. It's in 2016. There's also Gudrun Helgadottir. Now, my Icelandic pronunciation is 0 at the moment, so excuse my pronunciation of that. I will get better at it. Her article, Nation in a Sheep's Coat, the Icelandic Sweater, from 2011. And maybe it's Silja, maybe it's Silvia, or Silva, I think it's Silja. Omarsdottir, a sweater for Zelensky, sending warmth and mundane militarization in Iceland, 2024. This is a critical security studies article. It's very excellent. Anyway, I think the thesis you'll be able to get won't be behind a paywall, but the others probably are. And this thesis, like when you're doing a PhD, right, you start with, it's good to feel like the idea is you're going to make a unique contribution, something that hasn't been sort of said or done before, something just, you're going to add something to the ongoing conversation that is research. And so you start out with an idea, but you haven't read everything yet, so you actually don't know how unique your idea is. And so sometimes you come across, and over the months and possibly a few years, right, you come across more and more literature, and sometimes you find something where you think, oh no, someone's already done it. And when I first saw Kathleen Donlan's thesis, I had this little moment of like, oh, but it's really different. So that's really great. It's a super useful thesis though for me. I haven't finished it yet, or sort of got everything out of it that I'm really going to, because there's a lot in it. It's great. But let's say I'll say a few thing about the Lopapeysa. So there's no one designer of it, right? Some people say, oh, there is, and other people say, no, there's not. But the Lopapeysa is thought about. Certainly Helgadottir brings this in as an example of what's called an invented tradition. Obviously all traditions are invented at some point, I guess, but the Lopapeysa actually kind of emerged, like no doubt Icelanders were wearing and making sweaters before this, and this is what I'm really interested in. It's like if the Lopapeysa kind of emerged at this time, what were they knitting before? But I think it became a very strong cultural symbol at the time when Iceland was getting independence from Denmark, so in the 1940s, I think it was 44. So, but in the 50s, 60s afterwards, it was very, very popular as this expression of national identity and what it meant to be an Icelander. And so the sweater started to come to be a very symbolic object as well, right? It started to represent a lot of things and communicate a lot of things for Icelanders. And Helgadottir talks about how actually the sweater surges and wanes in popularity, and it's all about it's all about crisis, actually. So Iceland started experiencing or being exposed to a lot of sort of globalization influences at the start of the 2000s, and Lopapeysa became really popular again, right, as this means of kind of reaffirming Icelandic identity. And again in the economic crisis of 2008, so basically the country went bankrupt, and it's a very complex process that I really know nothing sufficient about to say anything about it. But what Helgadottir says is that a lot of public figures who were either partly responsible or implicated in it stopped wearing their business suits and started wearing sweaters when they were doing public on-camera things, right? Just very interesting. But that the sweater again sort of experienced this resurgence of popularity, again as a way to kind of maybe stabilise identity, but also to communicate sort of traditional values and this kind of reaction against I guess global influences and the ways in which that impacts Icelandic identity. And I think that's a huge process from what I gather in Iceland. So I'm really looking forward to getting there and really starting to experience that. Because what you read in books and articles, they're always subjective, of course, but it's also not the same as being somewhere. So anyway, it's a sweater that carries a heavy load symbolically, right? And it's also hugely popular with tourists. Like, I'm not sure what the tourist figures are now, right? But a few years ago, it was at least like 2 million tourists a year coming to Iceland. It's a population of under 400,000 people. And I think about 20% of that now are people who've migrated in significantly to service the tourist industry. So there's it's a big tension, I think, in Iceland, from what I gather, is the impact of tourism. Like, there's obviously some great positive impacts, particularly financially, but also some maybe cultural and environmental impacts that are quite challenging, right, or disputed. So, but the Lopapeysa is very popular with tourists as a souvenir, as something representing something very authentic about Iceland. So, of course, those kind of numbers meant that Icelanders certainly could not keep up with hand knitting the demand, right? So some entrepreneurial Icelanders, let's say, turned to offshore processing. So there began this process of manufacturing the Lopapeysa out of the country and machine knit, maybe some of it, still maybe hand knit out of the country as well, and maybe with some Icelandic wool, but not necessarily 100%. Anyway, and then they're getting kind of sold as these authentic sweaters. And so this is, again, sort of implicating Icelandic woolen sweaters in processes of globalization, and it's really interesting. And so, there's also this amazing, from what I understand, I can't wait to go and see them and meet some people from there. But the Hand Knitters Association of Iceland, I think, started in '76. Hundreds of women kind of came together, partly to sort of ensure that they were hand knitting sweaters already for income, and I think they maybe weren't getting paid very well. So, it's in some ways, a form of, let's say, collective action. Anyway, it sounds like an amazing collective. But in 2020, they applied for and got what's called the protected designation of origin. So this is a European kind of process, I believe. Maybe it exists in other places, but where agricultural products and beverages, and maybe there's a few other things that go in there, right? But they basically protect the name of a thing. So this happened with champagne, right? Like, you can't call it champagne anymore unless it was kind of grown and produced in that region. So basically this is legal protection for the word Lopapeysa, and they came up with a list of criteria of things that the individual sweater, some characteristics about it if you wanted to legally call it a Lopapeysa. And so it was it's like it had to be knit from Icelandic wool, new wool, not recycled, hand knit. It had to be seamless, so you had to knit it all in one garment. So it means you can't knit pieces like a back, a front, and a couple of sleeves and sew them together. So that actually has an impact for sort of machine knitting processes. So it has to be hand knit, Icelandic wool, new, that is shorn in Iceland. So that also means if it's Icelandic wool grown in another country, because Icelandic sheep are popular in some areas in the US and maybe some other places, that wool won't qualify, right? So Icelandic wool in Iceland, it has to have like a colourwork yoke. I'm I'm not sure if the cuffs have to be, I can't remember the details there. And it can be a cardigan or an all-in-one sweater. And was there something else? I don't remember. You don't have to be an Icelander to knit it, which is great. It has to be knit in Iceland. So when I go make Lopapeysas, I think I will fit the criteria as long as I'm doing the knitting in Iceland, which I can do it. I can do a sweater in 4 months. So that's just super interesting. I haven't come across another garment that has a similar kind of legal protection. If you know of one, please let me know, because I don't want to go off writing repeatedly, it's the only one, and be wrong about that. So yeah, I haven't come across anything with legal protections. Doesn't mean there aren't like definitional things about, say, like what Fair Isle knitting is or a Guernsey sweater. But I think legal protections is a whole nother level. And that just kind of, it adds more layers to the sweater as a really, really important cultural object. And if we thought back to a couple of episodes ago when I talked about sweaters as text, right? The Lopapeysa is like a really heavy, thick tome, and there are more chapters getting added to it ongoingly, because an object is not a static thing in terms of its life phases, but also the kinds of meanings and uses that it's put towards. So I'm super looking forward to making a few when I'm there, because I think it just won't be the same as just like knitting some sweater I found on Ravelry. So I'm, particularly when I do it from, oh my god, I hear this angle grinder going off in the background. See how we go. I'm almost finished. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to making some, particularly doing from fleece to sweater. I think will be amazing. I'm going to knit some from already milled wool as well, but yeah. Anyway, that's a great segue into what have I been making. So I'm still only working on the hand spun vest, and it is looking more like a vest. I haven't done a size check yet, but we'll leave it to see. It's going to be okay. And yeah, I think last time I posted about it, I hadn't joined under the sleeves, and I have now, and maybe got about that far. So I'm making good progress. I don't have a lot of time for knitting, but it's the only thing I'm knitting. That's uncommon for me. I usually knit, you can see how cold it is. It's cold. Yeah, I usually knit more than one thing at a time. Not lots, but anyway, so I'm a little bit bored with it. And I've got about a month to really get it finished, so I think I'm on track for that. That's okay, but I don't like cutting it fine with deadlines, so I will keep putting a bit of time into that. It has been making, like the boredom, right, using that as a reflective prompt, has been making me think, and I have been thinking about this for a while, but I think I'm getting closer to taking some action about it. It's about how I choose what to knit. Right, like do I go from, oh, here's a pattern I really want to knit, I'll go buy the yarn for it, or, ooh, look at that yarn, I'll buy that, and then work out what to knit. And I've been doing a bit of both, but I think actually more doing the yarn first, and I think I'm not enjoying it because I end up knitting things that aren't what I really, really love and want to knit. So I take this as just a learning in my journey, which is still pretty early actually as a knitter, about how to kind of prioritize budgets and storage space, and I don't really like having a big stash. So anyway, I think I've been doing too much of the yarn first, which might mean I don't go to the Bendigo yarn show this year. I don't know how I feel about that. I just know if I go, I'll spend a fair bit of money on yarn that I might not have a plan for, and don't know that I want to do it. So anyway, I'm thinking about this. But tell me, what do you do? Are you a yarn first, a pattern first? How do you make it work? Or do you do a mix? How do you do like stash management? Because that's the thing partly for me, is around how am I using my yarn budget? I say budget like I've got a budget. Obviously, I don't have a budget. It's more just like, what do I feel I can afford? And storage space. So I don't know. What do you juggle with that? I think there's lots of intersecting values and approaches, and I am trying to work out what fits for me. So I would love to hear what is working or not working for others. Okay, that's it for this week because my feet are freezing. Thanks for watching. I will be back next week. Okay, bye.